It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. And after many, many delays, I finally get to talk about Morbius. And oh boy, there is a lot to discuss. So, yeah, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. Yes, there are pros to this. So pro number one is Morbius is a Spider-Man villain, right? And as you've seen recently, the Spider-Man brand in the world of movies has been doing pretty darn well, I would say. I mean, No Way Home's box office is self-explanatory. I don't need to go over that. And even like Venom 2, which came out like a few months before No Way Home, that did very well for itself. At the time, it had like the biggest opening weekend of 2021 before that record was completely demolished by No Way Home, but still, Venom 2 did very well for itself. So, yeah, the Spider Man brand is on a high right now, so it would make sense for Sony to release a movie like this in the middle of all that goodness, right? So that's pro number one, just Spider Man brand recognition, and this being somewhat connected to that. Although the connection is very confusing, I'll explain that when we get to the cons because I have seen this movie. I saw it last night, and I will explain my thoughts when we get to the cons, all right? But yeah, Spider Man brand recognition, that's a pro. Another pro I would say is that there's no real competition out there right now. I mean, the Batman's officially a month old. It's about to hit HBO Max in a few weeks. I mean, The Lost City is going after a completely different target demographic. Um, Besides those two, there's really nothing at the moment. And there's nothing coming out this weekend besides this either. So, yeah, when it comes to competition, this movie doesn't have anything to worry about right now. Okay. But yeah, lack of competition right now, I would consider that a pro. Another pro is the target demographic this movie's clearly going for is the male 18 to 34-year-old demographic, the demographic that's been showing up the most, in the last few years since movie theaters reopened. I mean, we've had many success stories with this demographic. I mean, we had the Batman last month. You had Spider-Man No Way Home, obviously. Uncharted is another one. Uh, what else? I'm trying to think of Ghostbusters Afterlife, I guess counts. Eternals didn't do terrible. It just did mediocre. Shang-Chi did okay. Venom 2 did fine. No Time to Die. Well, that was more older demographic. But Free Guy did well. So yeah, any movie going after like the male 18 to 34-year-old demographic usually does well, or at least does okay. So this movie going after that demographic, smart, because they usually show up. So I consider that a pro, the target demographic. Another pro is the cast, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't call them draws per se, but they are recognizable enough. I mean, we got our main man here, Jared Leto. I mean, he's certainly been in some movies, quite a few. And I mean, he's won an Oscar, so he clearly must have some talent. But at the same time, he did give us the worst Joker in cinematic history, so but he's still a recognizable face. And he's on all the posters. So yeah, I would consider that a pro. There's also Matt Smith, like a former Doctor Who. He's recognizable, although he was also in Terminator Genesis. So there's also Tyrese Gibson, in a majority of the Fast and Furious movies, some Transformers movies. So he's recognizable. Then you got Michael Keaton, Mm, that's that's a bit controversial because okay, I would give like a warning for spoilers, but do you really care at this point? I don't think you really care. So Michael Keaton, he is in the movie, but only in the post credits scenes, not the actual movie. So everyone hoping that he would be like a semi supporting character in like because he was in the trailers is a lie. The movie lied to you. I'm just gonna tell you now. But you know, his presence definitely probably intrigued people to watch this, or more like tricked people into watching this. So yeah, the cast recognizable enough, so that's a pro in my book. Another pro I can think of. I mean, this is a superhero movie. The superhero movie is literally saving the movie theater industry and just movies in general when it comes to money. I mean, No Way Home. Look at the box office for No Way Home and the Batman. Made Batman made hundreds of millions of dollars. Spider-Man No Way Home nearly $2 billion. So yeah, like that's it's obvious the superhero genre is alive and well. It's thriving. So yeah, this being superhero movie helps maybe, but I'm gonna consider that a relative pro. Another pro is that this movie's been getting a lot of ads. I've been seeing ads for this movie since like mid March, so they've Sony's obviously pushing this movie, and so that's a good thing, I guess. So that's a pro, and I guess another pro is its Thursday night numbers. They're not as bad as I thought they would be. I mean, it's a mere fraction of No Way Home, which did like 50 million, and it's about half as much as the Venom movies, which made like 10 million. Like the first did like 10, the second did like 11. This is like half as much as that, but this isn't a terrible amount. I think it's besides the Batman, the second best Thursday debut of the year. So it's got that going for it. um, so that's a pro, I guess. Okay, I think I'm done with the pros. Cons. Oh my god. Okay, the most obvious con right out of the gate. The reviews for this. No, I don't think anyone expected greatness out of this movie. No one expected this to be, you know, a genre defining flick. Nobody thought that. But my god, the reviews are just trash. They are abysmal. Last I checked, it's like a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means it is just down in the depths when it comes to superhero movies. It's in the same league as, say, Catwoman or Elektra or Dark Phoenix or Fantastic or what else? Green Lantern is another one. Jonah Hex is another one. Um, for the Fantastic Four movies from like with Chris Evans pre Captain America. Um, did I already mention Elektra? Yeah, I think I did. Maybe Ghost Rider. The Ghost Rider movies are some other ones. Yeah, just a bunch of bad movies you never want to be compared to ever. And Morbius is just right down there with them. And that score is the type of score that kills a movie before it comes out. And not only the critic score, the audience score is not good either. It's like at the verified score is like at 65 or 4%, which is terrible for a movie like this. Usually audiences can be very forgiving. Like even movies that were not that great usually get a score around like 70, 80%. When you're in the 60s, you are in deep trouble. That means word of mouth is not good and it's not going to get any better as time goes on. So, yeah, critic score, audience score, bad, both of them. So, toxic word of mouth is a con, the biggest con, the most obvious con. So that's con number one. Con number two is that I believe the delays for this movie did more harm than good. Because I just want let's explain this whole thing. So this movie, the first trailer for this movie dropped in January of 2020. Okay, this is when Sony assumed it was going to come out that July. All right, that's when they thought it was going to come out. Then you know what happens next? COVID, yeah, and it caused the movie to get delayed quite a few times. I covered it all in the canceled series. It get moved from like July to like March of last year, then October of last year, then like January. And a lot of people assumed, including me, that it would stay in January. And then, right as January started, they moved it again to April, which was very frustrating for me. And I was just like, well, but I mean, theoretically, this movie still could have came out in January. There was no reason to push it back. I mean, Sony's reasoning was, "Oh, Spider-Man: No Way Home is continuing to make so much money. We don't want Morbius to interfere with that." That was their logic. But it still could have came out. I don't think Spider-Man would have been affected that much. Let's be real. So, yeah. And just the fact that the first trailer came out like 2 years before the movie actually came out, what that does is that you have that initial bit of hype, and then that hype dies because there's like nothing after that for nearly like 2 years. So the next trailer came out like in November, and then another trailer came out like in February. Then that was it, and then we were off to the races with ads, and yeah, so I think the delays did more harm than good for this movie. I mean, some movies have been able to survive like long delays. I mean, Quiet Place 2 did it, Free Guy did it, Venom 2 did it. What else I can think of off the top of my head? The Batman to an extent, Uncharted to an extent. Like, these movies can survive delays, but some can't. And I don't think this is going to be one of them. So yeah, long delays is a con for me. I consider that a con. Another con is okay, this is a spoiler, but again, I don't care anymore. I don't care. Now, this comes from someone who has seen the movie. I'm just gonna tell you right now, the movie's trash. It's absolute trash. The more I think about it, the more I hate it. It has so many flaws. I mean, just the movie moves like a mile a minute. Like nothing gets developed. Things just move so fast. You have no time to process anything. You don't care about any of the characters. The story is extremely predictable. The fights are just CGI, a CGI mess. Just a CGI blur. And yeah, the biggest insult was like the post credits scenes, which have Mr. Michael Keaton in them, the Vulture. And like that was the thing a lot of people talked about when that very first trailer hit was, "Oh, Michael Keaton's in this movie. What does that mean?" And then there was like another scene in that first trailer where it showed like a poster of like Spider-Man, looked like Raimi's Spider-Man, and it just has like murderer on it. That's never in the movie. I searched for that scene. I was waiting for it and it never happened. So I'm telling you that now. But that post-credit scene, I'm just gonna tell you what it is. So, because of No Way Home, with all the dimensional shenanigans, the multiverse shenanigans going on, Vulture was sent from like the MCU world to the Morbius slash Venom world because Morbius and Venom are in the same universe. Venom gets name dropped in this movie, so Vulture shows up in this universe, right? In prison, and then he's just like let go because why? Like he didn't exist in that universe. And then it gets even more stupid. Like the second post credit scene, like Morbius is like driving somewhere and he stops and then he sees like Vulture just come in, just fly in with his suit. I don't know how he made that suit, the time he whatever. So Vulture shows up and he talks to Morbius and he's like, "Hey, I really don't know a whole lot about this place. Probably has something to do with Spider-Man." He did name drop Spider-Man. And he's like, maybe you, me, a couple other guys, we can do some good. And Morbius is like, that's intriguing. And then that's how it ends. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? That was the most. That may have been one of the worst post-credit scenes I've seen ever. Like, usually post-credit scenes are supposed to get you hyped. This had the opposite effect. It just made me confused and just depressed. And so I feel like anyone who watches the movie, excited to see the post credits scene, they're going to be let down severely. So I think that's a con. Just extremely lackluster post credit scenes that make no logical sense, that are going to make people more angry than hyped. So that's a con. The post credit scenes, and just the fact that the movie lied to you in the trailers, and the fact that Sony spoiled the movie like a few days in advance. Like, what was that? Like, I didn't read up on it, but I heard about it. I'm just like, Sony, they've clearly given up at this point. I think they knew the movie was ass, and they just were just like, you know what? Let's just tell the people what's really going on, because for the longest time everybody was confused on what this movie was, the connections with Spider-Man, and someone was just like, you know what? Forget it. Here's a spoiler in the open. So, yeah, post-credit scene, big con for me. And another con for me was just that, with the reviews, again, is the fact that the review embargo was lifted so late for this movie. Like, I checked reviews for this movie like all week, and there was like nothing for the longest time. And then that Wednesday, like the day before the movie had its Thursday previews, there was still no reviews. Like we're talking less than 24 hours, and there was just before the movie was released to the public, and there was nothing. And then reviews started coming in, and they were all ass. They were all bad. And I was like, oh no. So, yeah, that late review embargo really, that's a instant red flag for me. So, the fact that they had to do that is a con. I guess it goes with the bad reviews too. It's related to that. So that's a fourth con. Fifth con are the movies coming out after this. I mean, next week we got Sonic 2. The week after that, you got Fantastic Beasts 3, which is going through some its own controversies. But I'll talk about that when the movie comes out. So yeah, obviously those two movies are gonna take away some of the big screens from Morbius, which is gonna hurt it a lot. And then by the time Doctor Strange 2 comes out, this movie will be dead. I guarantee it. It will be just dead in the water. But that's usually the case for movies that are released for like many, many weeks, with the exception of No Way Home. But yeah. So yeah, movies coming out next few weeks are going to eat into this movie's box office, take away those big screens, like those IMAX screens, and take them away. So yeah, that's a problem. Uh Anything else I can say about this movie? Huh. I can't think of anything else. Okay. Opening weekend. Originally, like a couple weeks ago, I would have said 50 million opening weekend, but now I'm not too sure. I'm not confident in that at all. And these preview numbers, although they seem good, you have to remember that comic book superhero movies, whatever you want to call them, can be very front loaded. Even the good ones can be front loaded. So, yeah. So, I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to hit 50 million. I mean, I could compare it to some other movies, some other bad superhero movies. Oh, One more thing to mention about this movie. I know a lot of people have mentioned it already, but Morbius. Let's go back to Morbius for a little bit. Morbius. It feels like a movie that should have came out like 20 years ago, like during like the pre MCU Marvel movies. Like pretty much anything not called Spider-Man or X-Men. Like we're talking Daredevil, Ang Lee's Hulk, Elektra, the first two Fantastic Four movies, Ghost Rider. It would fit right in there, and that is not a compliment at all. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that because it certainly does feel like a movie from a bygone era in the worst way possible. So I'm gonna compare it to some movies. There's Fantastic, which seems obvious. There's Birds of Prey. I don't know. I don't know if I compare it to that. Dark Phoenix. I can definitely compare it to that. So let's look at these. Dark Phoenix. Okay, from 2019. This monstrosity, the death of the X-Men movies. This had like a 5 million preview night, and then it just crumbled after that. It just completely died. That could happen with this movie. That is certainly possible. It's certainly in the realm of possibility that this movie could have a similar fate to Dark Phoenix, considering the bad reviews and everything. But let's look at Fantastic here. Another monstrosity. um, what were its preview numbers? Oh man, 2.7. That's. I mean, Morbius will do better than that at least, unless something truly catastrophic happens. But yeah, man. Oof. So Dark Phoenix situation could happen here. That opened with like 32.8 million. I don't think Morbius will hit that low, but with Morbius, I'm gonna have a somewhat wide range with it, and I'm gonna say between 35 and 45. That's where I see it landing. Somewhere in that range. I see it landing there. And it's total I do know that this movie is going to be it's going to crumble after like its opening day and its opening weekend. It's just going to fall apart because it just seems inevitable. I'd be surprised if this movie had strong legs. But if it did open around like in the mid 30s, it'll probably end at around like 70 something. If it opened like the mid 40s, it would probably end at around 80 to 90. I don't see this movie making 100 million domestic. Again, I'd be shocked if it did. But yeah, just and yeah, that's it for Morbius. Yay, I never have to talk about this movie ever again. Until I make that April recap video. So yeah, that was Morbius. Very bad movie. Easily the worst movie I've seen since Space Jam 2. And that's not an exaggeration. I never want to see it again. And I hope everyone forgets about it very quickly. So yeah, that was that. So now next week we have three movies to talk about. One of them's not on here. You got Ambulance, you got Everything Everywhere All at Once going wide, and then of course the one and only the Sonic the Hedgehog a 2. I'm actually excited to not only talk about that movie but actually watch the damn movie. I've heard that movie's not super great, but I was never expecting greatness with Sonic anyway. I'm just like, just give me a stupid, fun, silly movie, and I'm good to go. Morbius was not that. It wasn't even goofy like the Venom movies. So that just made it all even worse. But yeah, Sonic 2, I'm excited to talk about that. And then the week after that, you got Father Stew and Fantastic Beasts 3. That should be interesting to talk about. And then the 22nd, it gets real crowded. You got the bad guys, got Northman, and you got the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I'm actually interested in watching Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And then the 29th, I believe a movie called Memory, like a Liam Neeson movie, comes out then, and then that'll be it for April. So yeah. Anywho, yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out any of the past prediction videos I made this year? And go right ahead. I mean, I've done all the big ones and the small ones. I've done the Batman. I've done Uncharted. Those are pretty much the only two mega hits we've had this whole year. I don't think Morbius is going to join that pack. So yeah, you can watch those and all the others I've done. So you can do that. There's also all the previous prediction videos I made the past few years. Just go to the playlist tab. You'll find them with ease. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. Oh man, Morbius. I've covered this movie too many times. It was one of the earliest movies I've ever covered on with canceled. I covered like in episode 4. That was the first time I talked about it. And I covered it a few times after that. The last time I talked about it on Canceled was episode 100. So, that's that. So, pretty much, if you see a Canceled video with Jared Leto's face in it, then I'm talking about Morbius. So, you can go watch those if you want. But if you want to watch any of the past cancel episodes I made, there's like 113. If you want to watch them all, go right ahead. Watch them all in chronological order. You can just see how things have evolved in like 2 years. So do that. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. March recap will come out some mid next week. That should be a relatively short episode because I'm really going to talk about like 3 movies. The Batman, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and The Lost City, and that's about it. Some others, and some stuff that I didn't even mention in like my prediction videos. But yeah, that should be a relatively short video. But so stay tuned for that. But if you want to watch any of the past prediction videos, I not prediction the recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Don't watch Morbius. Goodbye.